Almost live. Here we are. Rise and shine. It is Green Nurse Cathleen Graham time. Welcome everyone to the nurse. Welcome. I have to do my regular intro because Mark will miss it. So anyways, welcome everyone to the Nurse Mark and the Green Nurse Daily Dose of AFA, where we bring you hope and inspiration for growth and healing so you can start your day off the AFA way. Mark wrote a book. It's really good stuff. If you're a man out there, this is just really about self-love, really looking internally within to heal, to heal different aspects of yourself. The part that I really like about this book is that Mark gives us permission to heal. So here's the thing, is when we are able to step into our own power and educate and empower ourselves to make choices that result in optimal health and wellness, it's extremely empowering. And the more self-love that we're able to demonstrate with ourselves, the more we show others that they're capable of doing it themselves as well. So welcome. Nurse Mark is still in France with his beautiful wife, Jamie, and their Tour de France. And checking out CBD stores and really, Green Nurse on the go in France. Really, really exciting. So Kathleen, I'm really excited to have Kathleen here. We've got a lot of really cool, juicy stuff to cover. A little bit of woo-woo, but not too bad. But we usually start off with the daily love and the AFA word of the day, the self-care tool of the day. But we're going to kind of discuss that as we go along in the show when we bring in cannabis education. And we're going to particularly focus on a topic that I've covered a couple of days this week. So basically, Kathleen is co-founder and CEO of CannabisNurse.com. She's out of Michigan. She provides holistic education and consulting, specializing in cannabinoid support. She has over 25 years experience as a registered nurse and brings expertise, joy, empathy to her patients. Her treatments are multifaceted and incorporate energy healing, nutrition, lifestyle, cannabinoid support. This is so cool because we talk all about this in all of our shows. So I'm so psyched to have another AFA nurse on. So Kathleen is an internationally respected teacher, speaker, educator, and leader in the field of end-of-life care. She's cared for many patients whose life journey was positively affected by cannabis. Kathleen has also taken their cause to a state and national level, testifying on numerous healthcare issues before government committees, and is an effective advocate for patients' rights. She is also, this is so exciting, everyone, big round of applause. She is also the first nurse to receive the American for Safe Access Medical Professional of the Year Award in 2009. Gee, you've been around. That's awesome.
2019. I'm sorry. It was 2019.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. My glasses. I needed to get a little closer. I need to get my thing out. But the thing that's so cool is that, nurses are making a huge impact in the cannabis space. We have a lot to say. We're game changers in the industry. We're leading the revolution to self-care, patient empowerment, education to help patients make choices. So Kathleen provided the cannabis curriculum to Hospice of Michigan, offering their staff continuing education credits and certification in cannabis education. We need that. So she's been doing just a lot of amazing things in the cannabis space. I'm really, really, really happy that she's here today because we're going to dig in to a topic that we've been talking about all week long. We have been talking about spirituality as the root of cannabis care. We've been talking about spiritual principles, through Carrie Lee on Wednesday when we dug into neuroplasticity, we dug into neurogenesis, neuroprotectant, how these different things can affect our minds, bodies, and spirits, and to help us to tap into different ideas, to open up consciousness. And then on Thursday, we talked with Denise, Green Nurse Denise, so happy to have her on. And we were talking about energized living and what it means to live an energized life. And, one of the things that Denise talked about was the 4 pillars. And the first pillar that she talked about was prayer. And prayer is having a conversation, slowing down and having a conversation with whatever you believe your higher power to be. And then today, I'm really, really excited to continue the conversation about end of life, hospice, and cannabis from Green Nurse Cathleen Graham. So I'm just going to, before we dig in, I just want to let you know, this is a really cool thing. If you haven't seen the show on Wednesday, I was on with Marcy Cooper. She's out of Colorado. She's a hospice and palliative care nurse as well. And she came on to share her story. And it was really, really a compelling story. We talked about her hospice life experience, my hospice life experience, how we've seen patients prior in our hospice experience working with patients that didn't have cannabis. And then as we started to evolve in the cannabis space, what it looked like when patients were able to use cannabis. And we're going to continue that conversation today. But the bottom line with that show was that I was censored. Okay, this was the first time on YouTube that I got a warning. And I really went back. I went back and I critically evaluated the video. And I was like, there was no bongs, joints, spliffs, pipes, weed, tinctures, edibles, capsules, gum. There was nothing on there at all that would have indicated anything illegal. It was a conversation. So I was trying to figure out what it was that flagged them. And the only thing I could come up with, which I think is funny, is I say hi a lot. You know, we're here to change your perception around what it means to feel good and be high. And then I break that down even further because we are trying to decrease stigma. It is okay to feel good. And so I've changed the word and the meaning, because words, we give meaning to words, and people think high is a negative word. So I'm trying to change the dialogue and perception around that. So H for hope, I for inspiration, G for growth, and H for healing. So what I did is, we have the Green Nurse community, and I think it should be listed right down below. But I asked for critical feedback. I put the video up in the Green Nurse community, and I asked for feedback. I said, can you check it out? Let me know what you think. So I want to give a big shout out to Trish Souza. Really, really grateful. She provided really good feedback, and it was very interesting to hear what she had to say, and I'm going to read it. So she said that I wrote under your YouTube video that it was a heartfelt podcast, and I hope that it helps end the censorship. She says, I saw nothing for anyone to complain about in this video. This was the most informative and inspiring story of a nurse's journey into hospice and palliative care, with additional benefits noted for the underserved mental health patients, veterans, and those with PTSD diagnoses. She writes, the discussion of getting high was symbolic. I never thought about this way. This is really cool. The discussion of getting high was symbolic for raising a higher quality of life. She writes, it's just not my opinion that human beings worldwide need to be fairly treated by the entire medical community and holistically using mind, body, and spirit philosophy. The healthcare system is lacking a lot of different things to benefit humanity. She writes, let us hope that stigma, bias, and plain old ignorance doesn't negatively affect the nurses who care so much for others in a worthwhile endeavor. She writes, let us be grateful for the opportunity to witness and explore the innovations taking place in this crucial time for change. I am personally grateful for the opportunity to watch these educational videos on YouTube and hope it isn't censored by the unenlightened. We are afforded a unique opportunity to witness the genesis of a new way of caring for one another more naturally than we could ever imagine. It is so great to see the passion and hear the stories. I'm inspired, and I hopefully feel that these feelings are going to propel change. Thank you, Green Nurse community. So Trish Souza, just a real big shout out to you for taking that time to really look at this, critically evaluate it, take the time to write your opinion and your thoughts. So I completely agree with you. You know, a lot of times when I start off presentations, you know, they'll say, what's the goal of the presentation? And you know, really what my goal of the presentation is 9 times out of 10 is a miracle. I'm like, I'm looking for a miracle today, y'all. And I'm like, you know, a miracle is a change of perception, that aha moment when it just makes sense. And cannabis has provided so many aha moments in my life. And so now we're going to dig in again to spirituality as the root of cannabis care, hospice, and palliation. And I'm going to let Green Nurse Cathleen Graham from Michigan start that conversation out, because it's been a while. So I haven't done hospice care since, I did it from 2005 till 2010. So there you go. So yeah, so I'm ready. Here we go. Welcome to the show, Kathleen. Let's dig in. What is the difference between palliative care and hospice? And this is for the new people that are watching.
Well, good morning, and thank you for having me. I am so happy for Nurse Mark and his lovely wife, Jamie, for being on a wonderful vacation. I hope they're having a blast still. The difference between palliative care and hospice care is that hospice care is for the terminally ill in the last 6 months of their life. And they receive care at home by a team of medical professionals wherever their home is, whether that's the hospital, long-term care facility, adult foster care home, or their home in general. And so the team comes to them and provides that care. They educate the family. They provide durable medical equipment free of charge straight to their home. They deliver their medications free of charge straight to their home. And they help provide that support and give that extra comfort that they need. There's no aggressive treatments, but they try to keep them out of the hospital. Palliative care, on the other hand, is for anybody that has been diagnosed with an uncurable disease. And a great example of that is Parkinson's disease or sickle cell anemia. Those diseases qualify for palliative care because there is no cure for them. But palliative care means that you still seek aggressive treatment. You just have an extra support that can help manage your symptoms, that can consult with your doctor. They still have a nurse practitioner that comes out to your house or wherever you are to meet with you so that they can evaluate you and consult with your doctor to give that advice, to interpret your needs of what you want. So that's the big difference.
So here's the interesting thing, okay? I know this sounds a little morbid, but I'm just going to say it anyway. Don't you think that we should all be in palliative care? Like, seriously, no, I'm thinking wellness too, but I'm thinking anyone that has a chronic debilitating illness, right? It makes sense that you're going to pursue both traditional and holistic care and do every single thing that you can to improve your quality of life. So I was looking at this, I was like, you know what? I could have used some palliative care back in 2012, 13, and 14. Right? You know, because here's the bottom line. I may not have been dying in the eyes of clinicians, doctors, and nurses, but let me tell you something. I felt like I was dying every single day, right? And so so you think of those patients, you know, that go from high functioning to not functioning at all for whatever reason for a chronic illness, and they may not have, you know, that 6 months end of life diagnoses, but it's still really, really hard on people, you know, really, really hard. And then being able to provide all of the tools available, complementing the traditional system, I think we need to change it. Like I'm thinking we've got people care, which includes, you know, endocannabinoid system education. We've got I'm just thinking of a different way to approach this, because palliative care, I think, is really, really important for those that have debilitating symptoms of chronic illness, whether they're dying or not. I don't know. That's just something that came up. What do you think about that?
I agree with you, especially with everything that people go through. If they're in and out of the hospital, that they usually provide a nurse practitioner, and that nurse practitioner is there to communicate with all of the doctors taking care of you, so that you have one person that's on your same page, and that you're not having to communicate what Dr. A said to Dr. B and C or D, you know, because we can get into all these specialists and you're going to 4 or 5 doctors before you know it. And it's easier to have that palliative care. To have that
one person to just hone, like, so the nurse practitioner, the nurse is the liaison, right? The liaison to all of the other services.
And that's what we as registered nurses do as health advocates too. If you are not ready for palliative care, then I encourage you to at least seek out the advice of a nurse patient advocate to help guide you through this medical industry.
Like us, just like us, right? The cannabis nurses, right? You think about what we're doing is we're changing the dialogue, we're providing information for patients. And so it is real, like, seriously, like, you think about this type of stuff, is that don't lose hope. Don't lose hope. There is another way. There is a solution. Everything works and nothing works, and we got to figure out what works for us. And one of the things that I learned too over my journey of being a cannabis patient and then evolving as a cannabis nurse is that we look at healing as being curative, right? A lot of people, it's or that you're not having any symptoms, or that everything's, awesome and perfect. But I look at healing a little bit different. I look at it as doing the best I can with what I have right here, right now, so I can live a better quality of life. Am I completely healed from these 18 diagnoses? No, but I'm not going to buy into the story. I'm going to do what I can through these different tools, tips, and tricks when we teach about the endocannabinoid system, pair it with cannabis so I can live my best life. Do I have bad days? Absolutely. But I have a toolbox. And I know when my days are bad, it's because I'm not using one or more of the tools. So that's what we do as nurses, is we educate on the various tools that are available. And then the thing is when we get it even deeper into palliative care and hospice, we start to bring families in even more. That was one of the things when I did hospice that I found was the most difficult was, a lot of times patients came to the place of acceptance with where they were, and it was the family that was struggling. So, which was interesting too. And how do you work with that dynamic? And boy, wouldn't it be nice if we did have the ability to provide cannabis for families at the end of life to do that legacy work, right? That's where I'm going with this. I'm like, you know what? It's like the end of life. Let's celebrate. We celebrate the birth into this world. You think about, there's a beautiful poem called The Dash. And I wish I had it up. I should read it, but it's great. So it's like, you're born into this world and then you have the dash. When you look at your gravestone, they give a date, there's a dash, and then you wait for that final date. So right now we're all in that dash. We're in that dash space.
I love that. Yes.
Isn't that cool?
Yes. We're in the dash.
We're in the dash. And so we need to smoke some hash to stay in the dash. Just kidding. But yeah, so it's just really a different concept, a different way of looking at death and dying and looking at it as a celebration. I know a lot of people are afraid of it. I was afraid of it. I don't know how many times. Here's my story about death and dying. This is a good one. I was so afraid of death and dying that when I was 15 and 16 years old, my grandmother died, and I didn't go to the funeral because I was so afraid of it. Really, really fearful. I was afraid of my own death. I was afraid of everyone else dying. And I don't know what the fear was about, but I know part of it had to do with being vulnerable and feeling that I wouldn't be able to stop crying, right? And so we have a stigma around crying and showing emotion. And so every single fear that I've had, I've pretty much walked through. I've literally almost died 3 times in my life. Then I've had some really interesting shamanic experiences where you've had a conscious death, which is interesting. And it's changed my perspective around, having these dialogues. It doesn't need to be a scary thing. We need to talk about it. And so I am a big proponent of storytelling and providing anecdotal information because it's a reference point as to how we should research cannabis and these other tools, the plant, and the various different responses that we see from our patients. What do you think about that, Kathleen?
I completely agree with you. Because if we can't find real life experience where people share with you exactly what happens, how else are we going to learn? I mean, I get that there's data from the laboratory, but the mice that they use can't really speak to us and tell us what they're going through like a human can.
Exactly. So it's, which I like how, it's good, the research is evolving, but, and I love research. I look at research, the substantiation, evidence-based practices are very, very important in the traditional system. But I also too, I like to look at other stuff because it's, like I said, it's a reference point. It's a way for us to evaluate different things from different patients' experiences. And as we know, we're all different. All of our endocannabinoid systems are different, and we respond to cannabis in a different way. And we can respond to cannabis in a different way day to day, because everything that we do or don't do in our lives affects how cannabis works in our body. So let's share some stories, Kathleen. You have some good ones, and I'm going to let you start. There's some really good ones.
I love telling the story of the gentleman that really pushed me into this, and he changed my life and my perspective. We will call his name Mike. I entered him. He had emphysema, MAC tuberculosis, and he had tube feeding because anytime he ate, it filled up his stomach, which pressed on his lungs and made it where it was more difficult to breathe. So he came to us with a tube feeding because his family, again, it was hard for his family to accept his end of life diagnosis. So they wanted to force feed him, really. And he agreed to that because he wanted to stay alive. And so he had a tube feeding. He was a long-time cannabis user, and of course, because of his symptom, he could not continue to smoke. And so it was through that journey that I met Dr. Jeff Raber, and he introduced me how to make cannabis tea. And I taught the patient how to make, and the caregiver how to make cannabis tea. And it worked for him. It decreased his anxiety, decreased his shortness of breath, and started to increase his appetite enough where he started taking small bites and eating really foods. And it was really nice towards, we also, this is the thing, we had him on hospice service for 2 years and 4 months. And it was unbelievable how long we had him. The cannabis use stabilized his prescription medications. So there was 9 months that I did not have to increase his Roxanol, which is the liquid morphine, or his Ativan. He was on the lowest dose for 9 months. And I just really believe that it increased his quality of life, kept him more alert and interactive with his family. And he is the reason that I ended up in Lansing advocating for patients' rights and safety to have access to this medicine.
Wow. I think that's just so powerful. So that's just it. Usually when people go on hospice, what is they get, in order to be signed on to hospice, you need to have a diagnosis and a physician write that you have less than 6 months to live. However, they reevaluate it. Is it every 90 days or every 90 days or every 6 months? Kathleen. Oh shoot, you froze. Okay. Are you there? Kathleen? Whoop, whoop. I forget because I haven't done it in a while, but I know for hospice, and when I did hospice, they get the diagnoses, and then we would have to have the entire team reevaluate if they still had that diagnosis. And so, just to think that this patient lived on hospice care for, you said, for over 2 years, 2 years, 4 months, yes. Right? Which is really interesting. So, he still had that chronic debilitating death illness, but he was able to live it. His life was prolonged in a way where he could have a quality of life at the end of life with however way he chose it. So I really, really like that. So here's a really cool story. And this is a non-cannabis hospice story, which is kind of cool. So, and it has to do with connecting to the spirit of a human being. So I took on this lady. She was in her late 80s. She lived alone. She had a son that wasn't around. And she wanted to die. She had the failure to thrive. She was like maybe 70 pounds soaking wet, so thin. And so I remember starting to go see her, and I was like, she's not ready to go. She's just got a little spunk in her. You know what I mean? So let's just see what I can do. So it was really, she had pills. And she goes, I don't want to take any of these anymore. I said, all right, this is your life. This is the end of your life. So part of her was like, it was decision making. She wanted to be able to make decisions. And so so here it is. What's important to you? How do you want to live your life? We should be asking that question to all of our patients, not just the ones that are dying. So what she wanted to do is, so what do you want to do? Basically she wanted to play a game of cards. She wanted to go get ice cream. She wanted to feel safe walking around the block. So my care plan was taking her for ice cream, playing a card game with her, right? She wanted particular people to take care of her. She didn't want certain, clinicians. Guess what? You make that happen. You take that extra step and leap. So the story with her, as I worked with her probably over the course of 7 or 8 months, was that she gained 15 pounds. And she ended up meeting people, got her involved in seniors groups. So it was just a redirection, based on how she was leading me. I let her lead. It wasn't about me saying, oh, you got to do this, this, and this, but just providing that information. Are you really ready to go? I don't know. I could do another game of Go Fish with you. So it became, so having even the dialogue about death and dying with the patient that's going through that process or wants to die, is really, really powerful. So you can just imagine if you add cannabis to the mix, just a little bit, how it can pull you out of things, change your perception, allow different areas of your brain to communicate, and you can process emotion, which is one of the most difficult things we have to do as human beings. So that's one of my favorite hospice stories without cannabis, and how she graduated. And then I have some really horrible ones that I'm not going to share, about patients suffering at the end of life, and family suffering. And I know for a fact, with the capital F, that this plant would have made a difference in how they died. So you have another great story, Kathleen.
I do. I took care of a lady that had Alzheimer's, and her daughter came to me asking for help because the medications weren't managing her symptoms of sundowners. And so at that time, we found a store owner that grew a particular type of cannabis, that processed it into a chocolate and a gummy for this patient, and introduced her to the active ingredients of cannabis. And she actually started giving her mom mango smoothies with her cannabis chocolate. She started giving it kind of around 2:00 in the afternoon, so it would start having its effect. So it was kind of like a after lunch snack kind of thing. And she said it really worked to help decrease her mom's symptoms of sundowners, helped her relax through the evening, and helped her sleep better at night, where she wasn't up wandering at night. And I was just really, the daughter was so thankful because she wasn't sleeping because her mom was getting up wandering at night. And it just, it made such a difference. And incorporating those dietary changes are really important because it complements the cannabis.
Yeah, so that's a really good point too. Let's talk about that, because Kathleen and I, we're doing a poster for the ACNA conference, and it's literally going to be about all cannabis is not created equal, how we're looking at chemovars, cultivars, chemotypes, and then breaking it down a little bit further. So I like how you were able to incorporate mango into the smoothie with the chocolate. And the reason why is because of the synergy. This mango has specific terpenes in it that's going to contribute to the entourage effect and may enhance the effect of what we're looking for, right?
That is true. You can take what is in the cannabis plant, all the terpenes and active ingredients. Those terpenes are found in our other plants and other plant foods that we eat, and spices like bay leaves and cinnamon and black pepper. And those are great things to add to our dietary needs throughout the day that helps complement cannabis. And even if you don't use cannabis, they are good for your body. They decrease inflammation, and they are known for their different medicinal benefits.
Yeah, really, really good. And we talk about that all the time. Every single one of our cells that we have in our body is its own universe. And so we need to feed it, feed it with micronutrients. And at the end of life, it's hard. So you being able to get in even that was really, really powerful. So this is just really, really important stuff. Spirituality is the root of cannabis care. I have so many different stories about hospice patients. One of the ones that I'm going to share, and I'm not going to give any names to protect her privacy, but she was a nurse, and she had advanced stage lupus. She had a stroke. She had a brain bleed. She had feeding tubes. She was on methotrexate. She was on so many different pharmaceuticals, and nothing worked. And it kind of reminds me of, she was doing everything that she could to try to make everything work, and it didn't matter. Nothing worked. She started to lose hope, and literally, on multiple pharmaceuticals, narcotics, benzos, all different types of to try to manage her symptoms. They tried, but they didn't know about cannabis. She was petrified about cannabis. She was plagued with stigma around cannabis. This nurse really didn't drink alcohol, didn't smoke cigarettes, never did drugs, the whole 9 yards. So as she's, advancing, she's dying, like literally dying. And she went, to the doctors, and they basically said, we can't do anything for you. We've done everything. They pretty much, and they offered her hospice, and she was just like, I'm not ready to go. And it took her a while to get the courage took her 2 years, suffering. No one needs to suffer. You don't need to wait that long. And so she discovered cannabis, and literally she was able to come off of all of her pharmaceuticals, didn't need hospice. She still has health challenges, but she's thriving. This plant has helped her to thrive, not merely survive, but get into the thrive zone. And thriving for her looks different for other people. Like I said, living my best life isn't going to look like someone else is living their best life, right? It's different. And so the whole point of this story too is that she was traumatized by the traditional system, traumatized. And the fear of what happened was so sunk into her mind, because at one point in time, you think about it, you keep going, they keep adding, you feel like, I'm not going to lie, I was in that space too. It felt like I was getting killed. Like I was an experiment. See if it works. Let's see if it works. And it didn't work. And I know for a fact that if someone had introduced cannabis into her life sooner, she wouldn't have suffered so much. But the good news is that she's still alive. She is thriving. She's doing well. That trauma around medical system and pharmaceuticals affected her so deeply that it took her a long time, once she came off of hospice, to even go back and see a doctor. So as health professionals, I really 100% encourage you all out there to really start learning about the endocannabinoid system. Cannabis is here to stay. It's not going away. It's not a matter of if it's going to be legalized fully, it's a matter of when. And so we have responsibility as clinicians, as nurses, as doctors, as health professionals. If you're in the wellness space, if you're a life coach, you will be doing your clients and your patients so much service if you have that knowledge about the endocannabinoid system. I'm telling you right now, you'll be your patient's hero, for sure. Kathleen, this has been an awesome, awesome show. I think I'm going to give the AFA word of the day. And I think the AFA word of the day is going to be hope. Hope. I have hope. I have hope that this plant is going to change how we take care of patients in the traditional system. I know I've already seen it help people. I have hope that people are going to be inspired to look at their health and to take charge of their health and to be self-empowered and to self-love. There's no one more important than you, and no one is going to love you more than you. So this hope, I am hoping, is going to inspire you. And that inspiration is to look at things from a different perspective, to get out of their comfort zone and to start learning about cannabis as medicine, cannabis as a wellness tool, and how cannabis can improve quality of life no matter where you are in your life. So let's keep living our dash, right? The beginning of the dash is the year you were born. The middle of the dash is what we're all in right now, because if you're alive and breathing, you're in the middle of your dash. And the end of the dash is the day that you die. So let's do the best with what we have right here, right now. Let's live our best lives, and let's help others do the same. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. We love you. Stay tuned for Frequency Friday, 9 a.m. right after this. Kathleen, I think, is going to be on. Carrie Lee is Carrie Lee's flying to Boston right now. Denise is going to be on. I'm not sure if anyone else is going to be on, but we're nurses. We're going to be doing some little woo-woo this morning, because we love that. We love little woo. Woo-woo is for you. It starts your day off a really nice way. Other thing I want to promote too, before I forget, because I forgot, we got a community. Look at that. The Green Nurse Holistic Caring Community. Really quick story on that, and then I'll get off. So the Green Nurse Holistic Caring Community, why it's important to me is because when I started doing cannabis nursing, I started it from my bed, literally. Computer in bed, learning, figuring it out. Then I took the next step and started to create and to market and I figured this out. I figured out how to make this work for me. Now I want to help other patients. Well, I didn't have a home. I had my home that I lived, but I have American Cannabis Nurses Association, which I love, the Cannabis Nurses Network, which I love, but the Green Nurse Holistic Caring Community incorporates all of it. It's just not about nurses. It's about providers across the globe, providers that support and understand plant medicines. There's patients from all walks of life that are coming in there to learn. And I know for a fact, statement of fact, again, I learn the most from my patients. They teach me so much. And so patients are coming, they're able to have interactions with clinicians across the world, interact with nurses. It's an uncensored environment. It's private. You can participate as much or as little as you want. You can lurk in the background. You can read the posts. You can look at the podcast. You can ask questions. There's a free cannabis introductory course. And also there's other self-paced patient modules if you're interested in taking your education to the next level. We're looking for nurses. So if you're a nurse and you have the least tiny bit curiosity, just join the community, hang out, see what we're all about. And then if you're interested in taking it further, there's a ton of us that want to help you. We want to help you to reach your potential as a nurse, as a clinician, as we evolve in this space. Like I said, cannabis one day will be on the National Council State Boards of Nursing NCLEX exam. I know for a fact it's going to be its own specialty, but I think it's going to be the tippy top of the umbrella, tippy top of the umbrella. So anyways, I've rambled on enough. It is Friday, fun Friday. Everyone have a great day. I'm bring hope to someone. How can you bring hope to someone? Share a story of healing, share your love, share your kindness, share your compassion. I guarantee it's going to make a difference. Okay, now I'm finally ending. I love you all. Bye.
Bye.